Hi, I am Misty from BookRat.com, and this is my June rewind. So it's a look back at what I read in June with a quick thumbs up, thumbs down rating, and my thoughts. I will get right into it. This one doesn't come out for a while, but it didn't stop me from kicking off my month with Because It Is My Blood by Gabrielle Zevin. This is book 2 in the Birthright series. The first book is All These Things I've Done, and just like All These Things I've Done, it gets a huge thumbs up. There is something about the series that I just connect with. I really love Anya, and as much as it can be a little absurd at times, at the same time it's really not. There's something about Zevin's characterization and just how authentic they feel and how they grow, and Anya is the same person that she was in All These Things I've Done, but she's also different. She's grown, but she's grown in a believable way. She's still a bit of a cold fish and still kind of jaded, but she's also starting to open herself up, and the same is true of the other characters, and I like that and I connect to that. On top of that, it's just plain readable. I really enjoyed it. I loved the new places that it went and the new characters that we got to meet in this one, and I'm very curious to see where the third book is going and what Anya has gotten herself into. So definitely pick the series up if you haven't. A Witch in Winter by Ruth Warburton. This one gets a kind of tilted to the side, meh thumb. There were parts that I liked, and especially towards the end I thought it really picked up and had some good action and good consequences, which I look for in something where the stakes are so high. For the most part, I just didn't want to pick this book up when I would put it down, because I knew from the beginning exactly where it was going. There wasn't really any slow burn to it, to anything. There wasn't really that development and getting to see things come together. It was all just laid out and very typical, very, sort of unoriginal, and I just felt the need to skim a lot, and I don't like skimming. I try to avoid it, but there were definitely times in this that I did break down and just started skimming to the next plot point, or to the next piece of dialogue or whatever. Partly I think that was so I wouldn't give up on it, and so that I wouldn't give up on Anna's narration and just who she was as a character, because she kind of irritated me. I'm not a fan of insta-love, and this hit on a lot of pet peeves for me. Now, I think that it will be really well received with some, especially younger teens. I think there are people that are going to love this, and people that can approach it in the right way and just treat it as just entertainment probably won't be bothered by it. But I was expecting more and wanting more than I got, and that made me sad, but I am glad that I stuck with it, because there was a turning point where I did like the things that were happening and didn't dislike the storytelling or the narration as much as I had in the beginning. So it's very mixed. It's mixed for me. Lies, Knives, and Girls in Red Dresses by Ron Kurji. This is all sort of free verse retellings of fairy tales, and all with a twist, and most of them pretty modern. And this one also sort of gets a thumb to the side. I wasn't as impressed by it as I wanted to be, and I wasn't as caught by it as I wanted to be. There was nothing necessarily that was so standout that I wanted to tell people about, that specific retelling or that poem or whatever it was. It's very quick, and the twists were interesting. But they sort of felt like something that anyone would write, I feel like I have read it before, or could have read it from someone else. I don't necessarily know how much of a stamp Ron Kurji put on it himself. And sometimes it sort of felt like a writing class exercise, like a creative writing course would make you do this. They were clever enough, but there was nothing that pushed beyond that, I guess, that made me kind of sit back and say, wow, that was really neat, and I like that one. As I said, it's a very quick read, so, pick it up at your library, and you can probably, read it right there. And they are interesting twists, but in the end, not as memorable as I would have hoped. Burn Bright by Marianne Depierre. I held off on rating this one on Goodreads because I'm just not sure how I feel about it yet, so I'm not going to give it a thumb at all. There were things that I really liked about it, and I thought it was very unique and had an interesting tone and interesting world building, and I liked the main character, Retra, and I'm curious to see where the series is going, and we'll probably read more if I'm ever able to get my hands on the rest of it, because it's only published in Australia. But at the same time, there was just something missing for me. There were a lot of things about it that made me feel like I was reading an advanced reader copy, and I would have to stop and remind myself that I wasn't. There were things that should have been corrected, you know, not just typos and things, but just things I think could have been streamlined or just made more finished feeling, and I was surprised by that, you know, for a published book, and especially, I mean, it's Random House Australia, so it's not like a little indie pub or self-pub, it's, you know, they're the big guys. But that being said, even when it was kind of hitting on some pet peeves or was surprising me with the editing, it was still really weirdly fascinating, and I think it's going to appeal to people that like things that are a little off and a little weird and, you know, not your stereotypical YA, which I did like about it. It kind of reminded me of When the Sea is Rising Red by Kat Hellison. I sort of had the same feeling afterwards, like this is going to appeal to a very specific audience, and the things that that audience would like, I did like, but there was still just something that I was missing, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But it was good, I did enjoy it. I just don't know that I can necessarily rate it. I don't know if I can put that kind of value to it, because it's just sort of different than that. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but it makes sense to me. That's how I feel, so I don't know. It's a weird month for ratings. Sanditon by Jane Austen and another lady who is Anne Telscombe, or Marie Dobbs, because she publishes under both names. This was a reread, and I actually was supposed to hold off until July to read it, but I was craving it, so I went ahead and stuck it in the June pile. Liked it just as much this time around. I really like how Anne was able to sort of mimic Austen's writing and still make it her own. I thought that was really neat. And I also like the take that she has on the tale. I mean, you have a limited amount. It's 11 chapters that Jane actually wrote herself before she died. So you have this limited amount of information, but all the characters are there. So you know, you get these sort of hints of how they're going to be used in the story, and then you just have to kind of run with it. And I thought Anne did a really interesting job of running with it and building a world that I think Jane would have approved of. I'm sure she would have done it differently in some respects, but as far as Sanditon itself, I think she nailed it, and I think, like, it was exactly what Jane was going for. But yeah, it was just, it's good, and I really like it, and feel like she's one of the few people to kind of nail the tone for me. She gets that sort of intelligently witty, smartass thing that Jane Austen does. Dancing at the Chance by Deanna Cameron. This is a thumbs in between up and the side. I did like it. I always enjoyed myself when I was reading it, but there was nothing that necessarily made it call to me when I wasn't reading it. I just kind of, the whole time I had this feeling like, it's like a Hallmark movie, you know? Like when you watch them you think, these are kind of schlocky, and I know within the first 5 minutes everything that's going to happen in that movie. You've seen it before, the plot is laid out, you don't have to do any kind of actual brain work, you know, in watching it. It's purely just brain crack. You're going to sit back, you're going to watch it, feel a little wholesome, slip into another time, and that's it. That's all you can really expect from it. And so I kind of felt like that when I was reading this. You know from the beginning everything that's going to happen. I didn't always love Pepper, but I did like some of the other characters, and I liked, you know, the vision of the time period that she presented in a vaudeville and the chance, and I guess you just can't expect more than that. It's just that type of slip into it and enjoy it for an hour or two and then be done with it type of read. So I guess I would have liked something a little meatier just because that's me, but it was completely enjoyable and sweet. I really liked her view of early 20th century New York and vaudeville. And lastly, Midnight in Austenland by Shannon Hale. I had no doubt that this was going to get a thumbs up, and it did. Shannon Hale always does. There's something about her writing that just feels homey to me, and I enjoy her wit and I enjoy her storytelling, and I think she has a really fun approach to these sort of Austen books. There were times when I would kind of question the main character and say, you are a grown woman, what are you doing? But at the same time, it's kind of explained away, and and she would remind me, you know, Shannon Hill would remind me of why she's doing these things, and I'd say, oh god, that actually does make sense. So I was able to forgive some of the things that in another book I think I would have railed against, and I was able to forgive it because it takes on Northanger Abbey, and I love Northanger Abbey, and it's so underused, which is a shame. Really fun, really sweet, one of those that you don't want to put down, you know, even though there's nothing about it that you're like, this should win awards and I need to push it on everybody. It's still, it like pulls you in and you just want really badly to visit Austenland. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, thumbs up, as I knew it would be. So that is all from me. Make sure you let me know what you think of what I read in June and whether you agree with the thumbs up, thumbs down. Make sure you check out my July TBR to see what I'm going to be reading in July. Hint, hint, it's all Jane Austen. And if you do your own monthly wrap-ups or rewinds or anything like that, you can post it as a video response below so that everyone can check it out, or you can link it up on the linky at thebookrat.com so that you can share it with everyone and they can see what you have read or will be reading. That's all from me for now, and as always, happy reading!